The bridge quarterback. Every year there's a group of sorry saps who willingly take a starting job knowing that at any moment, the team that paid them, the team they thought was their friend, could shoot them in the back of the head. No. The ending of their NFL relevancy like a mob movie. Sudden, but permanent. There are a few branching scenarios that can get you labeled as a bridge quarterback. If your franchise recently drafted a shiny new rookie but doesn't want to rush things, realizes there's no hope this year and needs a commander for their glorious tank, or just really wants to make the wild card, you might find you're not so much the puzzle piece missing in their future plans as you're a duct tape solution to their present problem. It's important to remember that the whole thing is subjective though, and it's often easier to point to a bridge quarterback from the comfort of retrospect than pessimistically reduce human beings down to stopgaps in real time. But I've always been more of a glass half empty kind of guy. Jacoby Brissett in New England is in a different situation than Sam Darnold in Minnesota, who is in a different situation than Jarrett Stidham in Denver or Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, and all of their situations are different than Aiden O'Connell's and Gardner Minshew's in Las Vegas. But all of these guys are bridge quarterbacks. And their paths forward as bridge quarterbacks are limited. The controls they have over their destinies, mostly an illusion. Sure, one of them could come out as the week 1 starter and light it up for the whole season until suddenly they're the ones with all the leverage. Contract talks go from questions to demands. They say cool shit at the podium like,
"They wrote me off, I ain't right back though."
Maybe one day in our very near future, Sam Darnold will win a playoff game with the Vikings and be like, "They told me I couldn't take the heat, but I never left the kitchen." But more likely than not, he and all the others will end up on the sideline in a baseball cap, probably by week 9 or so. That's the thing about bridges. They need to be the unquestionable starter from the season opener and beyond to keep their jobs, but they wouldn't be in this situation in the first place if they could do that consistently. The whole thing is a bit of a paradox, where bridges, like actual bridges, are some of the sturdiest structures we'll encounter. The quarterbacks of the same name are usually anything but. Before we get into the rest of the video, I wanted to talk to you guys about the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. I've been so hyped to go to a Browns game this season, which means I've been scouring SeatGeek for which ones I can attend and for how cheap I can do it. On the app, you can review a ton of different seating options with IRL stadium views and filter them depending on what you're looking for. And since they put all the tickets across the web in one place, you know you're getting a good deal. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10 with a color-coded rating system. So, look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. And if you guys want to try out the magic of SeatGeek for yourselves, be sure to use my code, Doesn't Matter, for $20 off your first purchase on SeatGeek. Again, that's code Doesn't Matter for $20 off your first tickets on SeatGeek. Thank you again to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Please consider them for your next event and use my code. Doing so indirectly helps my channel grow. Now, back to the video. Although it's true that every bridge quarterback is unique and beautiful in their own special way, I think we can fit them into a few neat categories. There are a few types of bridge quarterbacks and situations that necessitate them. You gotta have a reason to sign a QB you're not totally committed to long term after all. I touched on them earlier, but let's spend a little more time on them now. The first situation is the rookie in waiting. This is the franchise that just snatched a rookie quarterback in the first or second round of this year's draft, but isn't saying if they'll start their shiny new toy right away. They'll likely want a model for their rookie to follow in training camp, and the opportunity to slow down the ramp-up process or just sneak them into the lineup against an easier matchup later in the season. It's the difference between Caleb Williams being treated like the starter from day 1 in Chicago, and Kevin O'Connell calling JJ McCarthy's preseason debut before his injury another glorified singular step in the process. Just know that if you're not the rookie in this quarterback room, this team has their guy for the future and it isn't you. But with that certainty is also a level of freedom for the bridge quarterback to show what they've got. The second situation is the wild card wild ride. Whether it's restless owner syndrome, keep my job-itis, or the frustrated fan base over a prolonged period of time effect, the franchise has one goal and one goal only: make the playoffs by any means necessary, baby. These teams typically trick themselves into believing they're just a quarterback away, and if they can get solid play out of a mid-tier guy, they could get to the dance. And you never know what happens when you get to the dance. Ask the Colts how that worked out for them and their murderer's row of bridge quarterbacks between 2019 and 2022. The third situation is the eyes on next year's draft. Now, taking in the NFL is really difficult, and there's no guarantee it'll actually amount to anything, so it's rare that a team will grab a bridge quarterback, hit sim season, and come back to the sticks for next year after fixing themselves a snack. At least they won't do it so transparently. But franchises can find themselves in weird situations and/or fall in love with an upcoming draft class and decide to punt on the present. Now let's talk about the types of bridge quarterbacks you'll see year to year and pair them with the situations that often create them. The first kind of bridge is the veteran mentor. This is the most dignified of all the bridge quarterback types. It's also where you'll hear phrases from coaches about the bridge quarterback, like how he's teaching the young guy how to be a pro, or how he can really get in and out of a huddle, and that the veteran is doing things the right way. The veteran mentor really only exists for teams in the rookie and waiting situation. So for the Patriots, who just selected Drake May with the 3rd overall pick in last year's draft, Jacoby Brissett is the prototypical guy for the job. He can produce like a starting quarterback in the league, but more important than that in his current role is the fact he completely understands what he was brought in to do. He's celebrated the rookie's good plays during training camp and is willing to talk about May's progress openly with an eye to the future of the team. It's a role he really came into fully last year with the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell. While Howell was a second-year player and Brissett never started over him, it was clear that Brissett was there to be a support beam for the young QB rather than a boogeyman hanging around behind him. After Howell's roughest patch around the end of December, Brissett said this of Howell: "I told him, this is going to be the hardest part of your career right now. It's going to feel like you're in this by yourself. I hope he leans on me as one of those good people that will help him get through this because I know I will." While getting yourself a veteran mentor won't guarantee anything for your shiny new rookie, it does mean you've stamped out any quarterback drama that might come from switching around the lineup. You can't say the same for this next type of bridge quarterback, the crossroads starter. Now, what is a crossroads starter? They're typically a quarterback that's got potential, who was drafted highly not too long ago, but who flamed out at one or two places previously. If quarterbacks were boyfriends, the crossroads starter is the guy you think you can fix. Some years we get a bunch of crossroads starters duking it out for the right to be the guy for week 1, other years we get very few. While all bridge types will encounter the quarterback competition conversation at some point in their summer, the crossroads starters experience it with the most sincerity. Like, sure, Marcus Mariota was competing with Jaden Daniels in camp this offseason, but was he really? Crossroads starters can appear for every situation, but they're best suited for the wild card, wild ride teams. And all of this together make Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew the quintessential crossroads starters for 2024. The Las Vegas Raiders aren't necessarily in rebuild mode, but they're definitely in a transition period as they've retooled their staff with head coach Antonio Pierce and replaced their GM with Tom Telesco. They went 8-9 last year in what should be a tough AFC West, despite 2 of the other 3 teams in the division flaming out last year. Nobody's expecting a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, but they probably feel their baseline is a 500 team, and if they just get some solid quarterback play, they might make it to the dance, and if you get to the dance, well, yeah. O'Connell finished last year as the Raiders starter, and while he went 3-1 in his final 4 games and was a guy I liked watching, he also didn't cement himself as a long-term franchise-level guy. Minshew also came in as a replacement quarterback last year for the Colts, where he put together a fairly impressive run, going 7-6 in his 13 starts. However, he still had his blemishes and didn't take care of the ball well enough to confidently name him the starter this season. Compare these guys side by side, and their numbers are surprisingly similar. And judging from the quotes out of camp and their preseason performances, neither guy has really separated himself from the other. Now, this could mean that the Raiders' defense has just been incredible, but it more likely means that both middling quarterbacks are just that, middling quarterbacks. Then again, that's kind of the fun with crossroads starters. You never know what you're going to get, but most of the time it's going to be mostly average quarterback play by a guy who will then intermittently make one of the worst decisions you've ever seen in your life. And the last type of bridge quarterback is the tank commander. The tank commander, much like the tank itself, is a rarity in the NFL. Teams looking for this type of bridge quarterback are often looking for a guy who's been in the league for a couple of years and conducts himself with a high level of professionalism while their football world crumbles around them. The tank commander really only works for teams who are already eyeing next season when the current one starts, although they do have a chance to turn that into a wild card, wild ride scenario. With Kyler Murray's injury last season keeping him out of the first 9 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals decided to ditch Colt McCoy and Jeff Driscoll and sign Josh Dobbs to command what they likely felt was a lost season at the jump. To be fair, Dobbs looked decent throughout some games and even surprised the Dallas Cowboys early in the season, but when the dust settled from the excitement of that Week 3 matchup, Dobbs and Arizona were 1-7 and all but mathematically eliminated. Maybe one of the less circumstantial tank commander seasons came in 2019 when the Dolphins signed Ryan Fitzpatrick to lead their glorified practice team roster. While getting them 5 wins was impressive, even more impressive was the fact that the 37-year-old led the team in rushing yards for the season. But all of that led to Miami drafting Tua Tagovailoa 5th overall the following year, and the Cardinals this season helped position themselves to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. 4th, so those seasons weren't complete wastes of time. While the fun of football in the NFL is the journey, there are a few destinations we can count on for these bridge quarterbacks. Outcome number 1, it's over before it begins. This outcome really only applies to the rookie in waiting situation. It's when the rookie beats the veteran mentor or crossroads starter for the job before the regular season begins. And for the crossroads starters, this outcome can be a disaster. You came to this town to rehabilitate your image, but now you're the guy who couldn't beat out the kid in camp who just became legally allowed to drink. While bridge quarterbacks are often forgotten about year to year in general, those experiencing this outcome may as well be erased from the history books. You may have forgotten that last year Andy Dalton was brought to Carolina to back up Bryce Young, or the fact Case Keenum and Davis Mills were in Houston behind CJ Stroud. Many signs point to Brissett at least opening the season as the starter, so this likely won't be his fate. For Jarrett Stidham in Denver, he might not be so lucky as the hype around rookie Bo Nix continues to grow. And for Darnold in Minnesota, things have been trending towards this outcome, but JJ McCarthy's sudden meniscus injury has cemented Darnold as the starter there. For Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh, he could also have this happen to him despite the guy behind him in Justin Fields not being a rookie. He has been slated as the QB1 to start camp, but a calf injury has opened the door for Fields. The second outcome is that you just get benched. This is the most probable outcome for all of these bridge quarterbacks. For guys in the rookie in waiting situation, this is essentially your destiny. Fantasy Index published an article looking into quarterbacks who were drafted in the first 2 rounds over the last dozen years, and found that nearly 70% of these rookies start more than half of the season. For veteran mentors, a benching can mean everything went according to plan and it was a job well done. In fact, you might get a similar gig next year. For crossroads starters, getting benched doesn't mean the sky is falling, but it can lead to a tricky offseason next year, especially depending on the context. Did the franchise just really want to get the rookie in there, or did they replace you with another crossroads starter? How it happens can determine whether you enter next year as a crossroads starter again, or are now a career backup. This is why the McCarthy injury in Minnesota might mean everything to Darnold's future as a quarterback. Now he can really only be replaced by another crossroads guy. For the tank commander, getting benched likely means you were doing your job too well. The losses were great and all, but the fans and talking heads on TV are starting to see through what the franchise is doing. So, the commander is off to the bench so the coach can install a new general. Usually a slightly younger QB that the team can say they're developing or seeing what he's got. The third outcome? Injury. You hate to see it, but injuries happen. For every type of bridge quarterback, what was happening at the time of the injury is always the most important thing. Veteran mentors who showed a little more than people expected only to get injured have secured themselves the same gig the next year, and depending on how good they looked and their age, may even get back into the crossroads starter realm. If they looked bad before the injury, well, this could be the nail in the coffin that keeps them on the bench or out of the league next year entirely. For Crossroads starters, if you're looking bad before you're injured, you're going to have the same difficult questions you had as if you were benched. However, if you looked good before the injury, your future depends on the situation. With a rookie in waiting, you've basically just given that team an excuse to play their young guy, and while it's unlikely you'll return later in the year even if you're healthy, you've likely gotten yourself another chance to compete for a starting job next year. With a wild card wild ride situation, depending on your contract situation, you've put the pressure back on the team. Will they believe what they saw from you was real and bring you back? Will they let you walk and let someone else make the assessment? Or do they try to sell high on you with some sort of trade in the next offseason? For Tank Commanders, it's really only sad for them. The team had no commitment to them in the first place, and then they'll just slot someone else in there and have an even better excuse as to why the team is doing so poorly. Outcome number 4, the return. Returning to the lineup after being taken out is an awkward proposition for the bridge quarterback, but it's one that can breathe new life into their career before the season is over. Veteran mentors returning to the lineup, this usually means the rookie was injured or just so clearly not ready that the franchise has bigger fish to fry than to worry how the veteran plays for the rest of the year. But for the veteran himself, he'll get a chance to continue showing what he's got later in the year, and maybe even play in a few games that matter depending on the circumstances. For Crossroads starters, it can really rejuvenate what you thought about them initially. Gardner Minshew in Indianapolis is a good example of this, as he returned to a starting role after losing the QB1 competition to rookie Anthony Richardson in camp. I think Minshew's stock went from backup quarterback with lots of moxie to fringe starter after last year. For Tank Commanders, getting yanked from the lineup and then put back in is probably just means you're in the midst of a dysfunctional franchise. Strap in. And outcome number 5, they never look back. We'll save the good ending for last, at least for the quarterback actually playing. For the veteran mentor, this is a strange outcome. If the veteran is so good that the rookie never actually plays, this might make for a fun singular year, but it can also create some panic around the organization that maybe their guy isn't actually the guy. For the Crossroads starter, this is why they signed the contract in the first place, for the opportunity to retake the starting quarterback label. It's funny, when Crossroads guys do this, it can actually be hard to point to afterwards because the bridge label gets lost in the shuffle so quickly. I think back to Baker Mayfield at this time last year when he was in a quarterback competition with Kyle Trask. Baker won the competition and then never came out of the lineup, earning a new contract in the clear-cut role of starter for the Tampa Bay Bucks. For Tank Commanders, this will almost always just be a short-term win. You were healthy all year and didn't play poorly enough to get yanked. If you didn't get the team into wild card contention, then you'll likely find yourself as a backup next year and a Crossroads starter if you're super lucky. For the most part, bridge quarterbacks are almost always just conversation for the offseason and a way to color the way we talk about training camp. But that's also what makes following them so fun. You're digging for a diamond in the rough, and when you stick with that guy through all the narratives surrounding him and he comes out successful on the other side, you can feel like the smartest football fan in the world. But the control these bridge quarterbacks have over their destinies are mostly an illusion. The team with you on their roster has to want you to become their long-term starter or their in-house player quarterbacks coach. And if they don't have you in their long-term plans already, you're going to have to convince them of that. And that's much harder to do when they're penciling in someone else for the most important position down the line. That's not to say guys in these situations can't completely change their current trajectory by having one great year, but it is to say that you need to be even better and even more consistent than you would have needed to be before receiving the bridge label. The art of the bridge quarterback comes in the fact that a multitude of different guys in different situations can be given the label, but what is expected of you and what is possible can change drastically based on what type you are specifically. For veteran mentors, say all the right things and look competent on the field, and you'll be doing your thing for a very long time. For Crossroads starters, you're fighting an uphill battle where you're only as good as your last game. Have a short-term memory because a stinker after a great game could get you benched, and not getting benched after a stinker gives you an opportunity to have a great game and start it all over again. This might be your life for several years. For Tank Commanders, just don't get hurt, please. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy it, and please consider subscribing to the channel so you can catch the next one. Thanks, bye.